Hello and welcome to Hollywood at Home from Arizona Public Media. I'm Victoria Lucas. There's an old saying that if a family can survive planning a big wedding, then the union may actually succeed. Tonight's movie, Father of the Bride, has a premise that's as timely as ever. Getting ready for a wedding is a major pain for just about everyone involved. The movie's tagline says it all. The bride gets the thrills, the father gets the bills. In this case, the doting father is played by Spencer Tracy, while the bride is none other than a radiant 18-year-old Elizabeth Taylor. When the small affair, as originally proposed, starts turning into a monster event, costs spiral comically out of control, and father becomes ever more frustrated to the point of being overwhelmed. Joan Bennett plays his wife, the enthusiastic mother of the bride-to-be, and Dawn Taylor plays her betrothed. The supporting cast is top-notch, too, including Billie Burke as the mother of the groom. Well, you remember her as Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz. And joining in the fun is Leo G. Carroll as the snooty wedding planner who keeps upping the costs. Oh, and keep an eye out for the young actor who plays the bride's always hungry younger brother. He's Russ Tamblyn, who would go on to become a musical star, perhaps most notably as Biff in West Side Story. MGM producer Pandro Berman bought the film rights to Edward Streeter's witty, best-selling novel Father of the Bride for a then hefty $100,000. He quickly convinced the top writing team of Francis Goodrich and Albert Hackett, who had worked their magic on other all-American stories like It's a Wonderful Life and Easter Parade, to adapt it for the screen. Berman had been working with director Vincent Minnelli in the planning stages of what would be a huge movie for MGM, An American in Paris. But production delays had pushed back that movie's start date. So with the script for Father of the Bride in hand, Berman asked Minnelli to shoot this relatively simple project first. Minnelli was willing, so they hurried the film into pre-production. Berman knew he wanted Spencer Tracy for the role of the father, convinced that no other actor could deliver the mix of tenderness, compassion, frustration, and humor the part required. And Tracy was interested in taking the role. But a slight hiccup occurred when MGM's studio chief met Jack Benny at a party and informally offered him the part of the father without first consulting either the producer or the director. Berman was understandably surprised and upset, saying, "Jack's a great performer, but he's a radio star, not a film actor, and he simply won't do in this role." Still, everybody loved Benny personally, and they didn't want to disappoint or insult him. So to save everyone's face, they staged an elaborate charade of shooting a screen test with him. Minnelli later watched the test film and confirmed that although Benny was a brilliant comic, he just didn't have the dramatic chops for this particular role. Luckily, no one in power disagreed. But then there rose another wrinkle. Spencer Tracy now needed to be coaxed into doing the film. He'd heard about the screen test for Benny, and he was miffed at not being, as he thought, Minnelli's first choice for the role. So he turned down MGM's offer and went on vacation. Well, come on. Minnelli wasn't about to give up over a misunderstanding. So he enlisted Katharine Hepburn's help to set up a dinner with the star, where he told Tracy bluntly, "With you, this picture could be a classic of a comedy. Without you, it's nothing." Minnelli's direct diplomacy worked. Tracy agreed to do the film without even reading the script. In addition, Minnelli's stature at the studio rose as a director who would fight for and get the right cast for his movies. So with Spencer Tracy set, the rest of the cast fell quickly into place. The lovely Joan Bennett had worked with Tracy before in Me and My Gal, and they had great chemistry on screen. Also, her hair and coloring made her a natural to play Elizabeth Taylor's mother. At just turning 18, Taylor was beginning to transition from her child star movies like National Velvet and Lassie Come Home to more grown-up films, and Minnelli knew that the role of the daughter could bridge the gap between the innocent teen and the more mature bride-to-be. One of the great delights of this film is its warm portrait of American family life at the beginning of the 1950s, or at least Hollywood's version of it. After the hardships of the Great Depression and the war, Americans were ready to embrace the Truman-era ideal of conventional values and suburban comfort. And as they became more affluent, they were happy to spend their cash on things like lavish weddings. Though, as the movie details all the preparations, we can't help but feel nostalgic for a time when the cost per plate at a high-end wedding was, wait for it, $3.75. By all accounts, Father of the Bride was a trouble-free shoot, with principal photography completed in just over 4 weeks. Spencer Tracy was easygoing on the set, something for which he wasn't always known, and he and Elizabeth Taylor got on very well. She said that they loved joking around between scenes, but once, Tracy played a joke on her during filming. As she remembered, the camera was over his shoulder onto me, and he played the whole scene with his eyes crossed, trying to make me laugh or blow my lines. I could have killed him, but I didn't bust up. She relished their time working together, later saying, "Even at 18, I learned so much by just watching Spence. It was his sense of stillness and simplicity, his economy of movement and of voice." For her part, Taylor handed the MGM publicity department the biggest gift they could imagine. When the studio announced her casting in Father of the Bride, Taylor made her own announcement. She was engaged to Nicky Hilton, the son of millionaire hotel owner Conrad Hilton. She told the press that the thought of playing a young bride at the same time she was planning her own wedding was, as she put it, positively drooly. So every time a magazine wrote about the real wedding, and boy, they did, they were in effect advertising Father of the Bride. To capitalize even more on the free publicity, MGM instructed their top costume designer, Helen Rose, to not only create the wedding dress for the movie, but also Taylor's real-life wedding gown. Both were such a success that Rose went on to design Taylor's costumes for many more years. When asked how she described her dresses for the star, she replied, "Simple but dramatic. If you have a magnificent jewel, you put it in a simple setting. You don't distract from it with a lot of detail." The studio knew from the first rushes that they had a hit on their hands, so they hurried the movie into theaters. From the moment of its premiere at Radio City Music Hall, critics and audiences loved the mixture of warm comedy and sly satire. Father of the Bride quickly became one of the most successful pictures of the year, and it was nominated for 3 Oscars: Best Picture, Best Screenplay, and for Spencer Tracy, Best Actor, his 4th of 9 nominations with 2 wins. So now please sit back, and if you've ever been involved in a big wedding, prepare for flashbacks. And if you haven't, then prepare to laugh at the follies and foibles of big-time matrimonial mayhem. From 1950, it's MGM's Father of the Bride.